right, good morning, karibu sana. It is the 20th of January 2025, Inauguration Day in America, as Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. That's a big story, even in our local dailies, when the US sneezes. That's a big headline on the front page of the Standard. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Karibu.
My name is Odida. Thank you so much for joining us this Monday. It is a slow Monday.
Oh, yes.
There's so much more in store for you, so thank you so much for choosing us. This morning, we have a lot in store for you.
Yes, and a quick look at the headlines. Of course, I mentioned this. A huge picture on the front page of the Standard talking about what's happening in America. He's being sworn in for a second term. Vita baridi ni habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Tuangazia magazeti mengine.
The Star, Ruto's big focus on jobs in a 4.5 trillion Kenya shillings budget.
Jobs on the front page of the Star. Kuna gazeti tulikuwa tumeacha hapa.
Daily Nation, Uhuru factor in Matiang'i 2027 bid.
It's even getting more interesting. Tulikuwa tushafikisha hapa.
People Daily, Rigi G, Ruto is a pathological liar.
Did we expect anything different? On the Business Daily, shrinking home ownership rate tests Ruto housing plan. Very interesting headline on the front page of the Business Daily. We'll be back to take a look at this local dailies in depth. For now, let's move on beyond our borders and take a look at the region. This is the East African. Talks about, and we saw this gentleman speaking somewhere, and he said some very controversial things about one of his colleagues who's also a head of state elsewhere. So they're asking, is this the end of Congo peace process? It's a question. With Kagame indicating relations with Tshisekedi have broken amid heightened M23 war, the future can't be bleaker. This is a conflict that has persisted for quite a while. Rwanda and the DRC in a back and forth on whether or not Rwanda actually supports the M23 rebel movement. And this is something that, at least in the region, will continue for a while. Trump 2.0 and Africa's hopes. That's another story given prominence on the front page of the East African. Continent hopes that the new administration will embrace the ongoing projects. The making of a rebel. Tanzanian activist Maria Sarungi speaks candidly about why she will not relent in keeping state on toes. And it's coming at a very interesting time as Tanzania gears up for its general elections later this year. And we'll see that when you take a look at the papers in Tanzania. Meanwhile, Uganda is also getting ready for their general elections coming next year. Woke youth vex East Africa presidents. Hey, woke youth, majenzi. Kuna marais wamekasirika sana hapa. So we have the image of President Ruto, Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania, and Yoweri Museveni of
East
Uganda.
African Abduction Community.
ESC.
Last week,
And they are the three who were put in boxes by Gen Zs, Kenyan Gen Zs. And that's why wanaitwa woke youth vex East African presidents. So the three East African presidents are not happy with the Gen Zs. That is, as far as the East African is concerned, a collection of stories from across the region. Let's focus now on Uganda and on the Daily Monitor.
2026 kicks off, and what to know about voters registration update. Stakeholders rally citizens to register. District ready for the exercises and security agencies on high alert. That story is on page 3, 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. As political parties say the time allocated by the Electoral Commission for Ugandans to register and update their voter details for the 2026 polls is not enough, but the EC defends the set time frame.
At least they have an electoral commission in place. In Kenya, bado tunangoja IEBC hakuna. But you can see even in Uganda now they're getting political. Getting ready for the election. So moving forward, a lot of the stories, you remember last week we were seeing health, education on the front pages. Now we'll see more and more political headlines in Uganda as they get ready for the 2026 elections. Still in Uganda,
government starts building 116 new seed schools. Full list of beneficiary institutions and districts inside page 6 of the new vision.
I like the photo there on the front page. It's a very interesting photo. And these are young Ugandans who've undergone patriotism training. If you've ever heard of anything like that. It's the equivalent to the NYS. So these are the student leaders. You can see the leader here. I think I call like 2 feet tall. So initially I thought it was the military, then kasema, military huyu angekuwa hapo. So over 700 students complete patriotism training. Imagine going to school to study patriotism. That is something, it's a thing in Uganda.
All right, why fintech leads the way in African startups funding. That's the top story on The Citizen. Fintech startups continue to attract the lion's share of venture capital funding in Africa in 2024, highlighting their significant impact on the continent's digital economy. That story is on page 2 of The Citizen. And Chadema leadership contest reaches critical juncture. That is on page 4.
This is political. This is opposition party. Now, the ruling party, Chama cha Mapinduzi, CCM, has settled officially for Samia and Mwinyi for 2025 polls. So the party has decided that Samia Suluhu Hassan will fly the flag for CCM for the presidential ticket. And Mwinyi here, Hussein Ali Mwinyi, who is the president of Zanzibar, will fly the flag on that front as well. So they're not changing their lineup. Samia Suluhu Hassan for president of Tanzania, Hussein Ali Mwinyi for president of Zanzibar. That's as far as this is concerned, because now they are getting ready. In a few months' time, they'll be going to elections. It is the same story on the front page of the Mwananchi. Kishindo cha CCM. Mkutano mkuu wampitisha Samia, Daktari Mwinyi kupeperusha bendera ya urais. Wajumbe wamaliza kazi huku Daktari Nchimbi akiteuliwa kuwa mgombea mwenza. Daktari Mpango aomba kukaa pembeni, wadau wazungumzia uteuzi. Huyu jamaa alipata asilimia 98. Samia Suluhu Hassan akapata asilimia 100 na kura zilizopigwa na wabunge wa chama cha CCM. Wote wameamua ni Samia na Mwinyi ndio watapeperusha. Ametosheka. Kule kwingine wanang'ang'ana. Bado migogoro ya Chadema yaendelea. Safu ya uongozi wa chama cha demokrasia na maendeleo Chadema kitaifa inatarajiwa kukamilika ndani ya masaa 48 kuanzia leo. So they are still push and pull in Chadema on who should be the flag bearer, but as far as CCM is concerned, washamaliza hiyo maneno. These are just the regional dailies, so getting quite political across the region. I don't know why. You realize in Tanzania and Uganda, they don't care much about what's happening in America. Yeah. Today, no image of President Trump on the front pages of the dailies. So we'll be back to take a look at this paper's in depth, the local dailies. But before that, probably we introduce our panelists today on State of the Nation. Dr. Mumbingaru, former MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, makes a comeback to this panel. Danson Mungatana, Senator Tana River, and Samuel Pogisio, former Majority Leader of the Senate and former ICT Minister in the Kibaki II administration. This will be the panel starting at 6:30 this morning. Do stand by for this conversation. I mean, after that?
Later on, as from 9 a.m., we will be having Monday Blitz. From 8
oh yes, Monday Blitz.
Yes.
I forgot about Monday Blitz. A lot of sports coming up.
Yes. Then after that, we'll be having this conversation on combating deforestation. Remember, a lot is happening in our forests. Logging, deforestation, you see, all that. We'll be talking about that with Amos Wemanya, Responsive Campaign Leads Greenpeace Africa.
All right.
And then later on, we'll be talking to Reverend Wanjiru Gashungi, founder of Mizpah Widows Projects in Kenya, on building a better world for widows in the area where she is at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's take a look at the weather situation this morning across the region, and we start off in Turkana.
24 degrees as at now, feels like 25, highs of 37 degrees. Cloud cover, but it will be a little bit sunny. So lows of 23, that's a good weather, but too hot.
This is too hot. 37 degrees, kindly hydrate if at all you've not used. Watu wenye wameishi huko hakuna kitu wanafeel, lakini if you're visiting Turkana today, beba maji. Because 37 degrees Celsius, hapana mchezo. Let's take a look at Kisumu.
20 degrees, feels like 24, highs of 29. Cloud cover throughout, it will be sunny throughout the day.
Not so bad. That's comfortable weather in Kisumu. In Nakuru, which is the other city, it is 14 degrees currently. More or less the same kind of weather, sunny throughout the day with a bit of cloud cover. Highs of 28 degrees Celsius. Twende holiday Mombasa kidogo. It's 26 degrees, feels like 29. Wow. Highs of 31 degrees. Same situation. Sunny throughout the day with a bit of cloud cover, not much though, but comfortable weather for anyone who's still in holiday. And let's take a look at Nairobi.
17 degrees, feels like it. Highs of 28 degrees today, lows of 17 degrees. So it will be sunny throughout.
Comfortable Nairobi weather, this one, yes. Hii unaweza vaa kawaida. There's another place where probably we should be taking a look at the weather, and this is in Washington, DC. Because for, I think, only the second time in America's history, they say that in Washington, it's actually freezing. It's -2 degrees as we speak right now, which is still, it's actually at night, yes? So, but it promises, even during daytime, imagine. During daytime, it's going to be -3 degrees Celsius. So because of this, it's lower than normal temperatures expected this week. Because of this, even the inauguration of President Donald Trump will be held indoors. Remember, they usually come down the steps of the Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
And then it's usually down there with people watching from the road. But now this time around, it's going to be indoors because of the freezing weather in Washington, D.C. All right, so that's the weather situation. Tukimalizia hapo tuangazie masuala ya traffic, tuone kama not so bad as we speak. Building slowly, guys, on Thika Road. Yes, Apale Pangani interchange kama kawaida. It's building up. And there's also slow traffic once you leave that interchange onto Murang'a Road. Hapa Guru Nanak. Walisema Guru Nanak ni hospitali, sio stage. But hapo kuna mahali inaletanga shida. So hapo Guru Nanak, kuna a bit of traffic. Juja Road, quite slow this morning as you get closer to that junction with the Slee. Jogoo Road, hapo St. Stephen, Jogoo Road, once you leave that roundabout heading towards Buruburu, there's a bit of a snarl up there, probably an incident around this area. So traffic on both sides of the road on Jogoo Road, both directions, very close to St. Stephen's Jogoo Road. So that's the only problem. The other one, Makadara pale Mbotela, hiyo ni ya kawaida, nothing much to worry about. Once you get to City Stadium roundabout, it's okay. Landis Road, Mudhurwa pale Machakos bus station, it's okay, green. But ukiingia to town, Haile Selassie Avenue, maeneo ya railways pale, roundabout ile ya Bomb Blast, easy kuchukua upande hii, there's a very dark red line, meaning that there you'll actually spend some time. But hiyo ni ukiingia town. Kwingineko, Mombasa Road not looking bad, Southern Bypass is looking good, Lang'ata Road nothing much to report there, Mbagathi Way 2, Ngong Road nothing to report, pale kwa Cross Junction, pale Prestige Plaza sababu ya mataa, you'll spend some time there. And then the other major tributary into town is this one, which is Wayaki Way, but nothing to report. Hata tukirudi as far back as Kangemi, sio mbaya. Apart from Kangemi pale kwa bridge, a bit of traffic pale matatu, lakini other than that, all the way into town, it's looking good.
So traffic.
Yes, Sai, it's 1:15. I think it's a good time for you to leave for your places of work. Kama wajaenda shuleni, waende Sai pia. Right.
So, right about now, let's take a look at the quote of the day.
It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop.
All right, and we start off with the Daily Nation. Top story there is Uhuru factor in Matiang'i 2027 bid. And former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i's presidential ambitions continue to gain traction, with allies of Uhuru Kenyatta saying the former president plans to back him to dethrone President William Ruto. A leading figure in Uhuru's party yesterday said, as things stand, Matiang'i is the Jubilee Party candidate for presidency. That story is on page 4 of the Daily Nation.
It's very interesting just how much influence the former president still wields. He came out last week and said just one statement, and wow, the whole weekend everyone was just responding to him. So a source says Uhuru is seeking to reach out to former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, whose allies were recently co-opted into President William Ruto's broad-based government to join Matiang'i's camp before 2027. It is coordinated. Uhuru is trying to put together the opposition to support Matiang'i. He is the one behind all these plans. This is according to this source quoted here by the Daily Nation. At least 9 legislators from the Gusii region attended a consultative meeting hosted by Matiang'i in Karen, Nairobi on Tuesday last week, where the issue of his candidacy was discussed. So is this the serious candidate to actually take on William Ruto come 2027? That's a big story. On page 4 of the Daily Nation, given prominence on the front page. Make America Great Again. Donald Trump there with his famous motto on that kufia, navigating Trump season 2. Africa experts predictions. How exactly will Africa be affected by a return of Donald Trump to the helm of America's leadership?
And you know, the expert says that foreign policy, Mikali Nyamwea, he says that this balancing act, Kenya could turn to countries like India for technology partnerships or Saudi Arabia for increased investments in agriculture. This moment also underscores a pivotal truth. Mr. Nyamwea says, and African states must recalibrate their dependency on the West. Africa must start looking inward.
Right.
To look inward is to rediscover one's strength. Okay, to weave, you know,
some beautiful words there, but sisi ni nani? Afrika sisi ni wale. Tunangojea Trump akae hivi, tuchukue ka begging bowl tuambie Trump, tusaidie tu mbeho.
Yeah, mbeho.
On the back page of the Daily Nation is Matter Sports, which is rare. The Daily Nation usually leaves some very serious stories for the back page. I'm not saying sports is not serious, but they're talking about Onana. Onana horror show compounds Man U's misery on home ground. Brighton climbed to 9th place with victory at Old Trafford. 4 points off the top 4, leaving United in 13th. The other story, Tusker hit Gor Mahia in chaotic fixture at Machakos, and that's the back page of the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at Taifa Leo.
Vita baridi mwezi mmoja baada ya rais kuonekana kuchangamkiana na mtangulizi wake, uhasama umeanza kuchipuka. Pale chini wanasema nipe nikupe. Na katika hafla ya Bungoma jana, Rais Ruto alionekana kumpokea Uhuru, aliyewahimiza vijana wapiganie haki zao wanazonyimwa na serikali. And in this quoted statement here, President William Ruto says, kama viongozi tusiwachoche vijana ili washiriki maandamano na fujo, mwakatae watu wanaochochea mfanye maandamano kwani hawana mipango ya kuwasaidia.
Naye huyu aliyekuwa rais alisema nini? Alisema nyinyi Gen Z ndio tegemeo la miaka ijayo. Piganieni haki zenu. Msiketi tu mkitazama yote mnayofanyia kazi yakichukuliwa. Msimame kidete na mhakikishe mnapata haki yenu. It's a very loaded statement coming from the former president, and now everyone is scampering and trying to respond and saying, oh, he shouldn't have said that, he shouldn't have. Kwani alisema nini? Alisema watu mpiganie haki zenu. Kwani watu wafai kupigania haki?
Inaitwaje? The soundtrack that was playing as he was saying that, very interesting.
And you know, he says it in a very calm way. Mimi sasa nyinyi mnakaa hapo. Fanyeni kitu. Pale juu, mkono wa Uhuru katika azimio la Matiang'i. Ufichuzi wa baini Uhuru anamuunga kwa uchaguzi wa mwaka 2027. So the former president now making big headlines. On one hand, what he said, on the other, it's his alleged support for Bwana Matiang'i to be president. Other quick highlights on the front page of this People Day of Taifa Leo. Wanasema Liverpool Forest zapa, Man U chini. Man U aliongea sana wiki jana walipopiga Arsenal kwenye FA Cup. Lakini mambo yao, yani wakisikia tu Arsenal ndio wanaamka. Bila Arsenal wanakanyagwa na timu ndogo ndogo.
Siku 25 za Raila kujua hatima yake AEC, anakabiliwa na ushindani mkali katika uchaguzi huo wa Februari 15.
Habari zaidi hapa Wandai na Mbadi sasa ni kupaa tu. Si rahisi tena mawaziri wapya kusafiri kwa magari, hata wakienda maeneo ya karibu. Sasa wanapaa tu, hata akitaka kwenda hapa industrial area anapanda chopa. Akitaka kwenda Kikuyu anapanda chopa. Hao ni mawaziri wanaitwa experts, walikuwa co-opted into the broad-based government. Trump rais wa 47 ala kiapo leo, roho mkononi duniani, rais mbishi wa Amerika akiingia ofisini. Aha, habari pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. On the Standard,
when US sneezes. Now today, Donald Trump gets sworn in for a second term, and the world is watching with bated breath. From peace missions to trade agreements, from immigrants, deportation to health programs, a lot is at stake as the Republican becomes the most powerful president. That story is on page 4 of the Standard. Another story there is, will Sakaja fresh push to clean city bear fruit?
They're doing quite some good work.
Hakuna choo? Town, hakuna dustbins town?
Lazima uanze mahali. You have to start somewhere. The good thing is, now at least you can stand on one end of the street and see the other end. They've removed all those messy signages that were there. I made to understand that they're actually physically washing some roads and areas, especially Aga Khan Walk, where a lot of street families used to spend their nights. So wanaosha na maji the whole night.
Yeah.
KCSE cheats to get second chance in July. That's a very interesting one.
Yep.
Lakini mbona wasema cheats? Si wangesema wale maybe walishindwa kupita mtihani wanaweza rudia July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ama wanasema wale ambao walipatikana na malpractice.
Walipatikana malpractice, why they should you get another chance, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Tuko na pale Ruto, you failed youth, you are now inciting. And President William Ruto yesterday told the youths not to listen to naysayers, inciting them against his administration, saying those leaders failed to create jobs for them. He was referring to former President Uhuru Kenyatta.
All right. So it is a big discussion there.
Yep.
President William Ruto continuing with his tour of Western Kenya. On the back page, matter sports.
Red Devils are dead and buried. Manchester United crashed to a dismal 3-1 defeat against Brighton as Ruben Amorim's problems mounted on the day Old Trafford paid a somber tribute to legendary striker Dennis Lowe.
Yeah. And they juxtapose it with a story about Arsenal, why Arsenal must cover faces in disbelief. Mikel Arteta admitted Arsenal had to take the blame for their damaging 2-2 draw against Aston Villa after sloppy defending cost them a chance to keep pace with Premier League leaders Liverpool. It was very unfortunate for Arsenal because walikuwa shaanza ku keep pace. Then they slipped up again. That is the Standard. Let's move on to the Star.
And on the Star, Ruto's big focus on jobs in a 4.5 trillion budget. President plans to hire 10,000 cops, 22,000 teachers, and 3,500 seafarers. That story is on page 4 to 5 of the Star. And Paleju, we have We Were Played. The Gachagua allies cry foul as fallout deepens.
Right.
You know? And we see a very big photo here of the leaders who are attending an interdenominational prayer service yesterday at Cheptal's Boys High School in Bungoma County, where Mudavadi and President Hu Western after merger, you know. Yep, that's the top story on the Standard, on the Star. Beg your pardon, on the Star.
Right. Umesoma hizo hapa chini. There's a man who committed suicide at Homa Bay in-laws after quarrel with wife.
Yeah.
Where?
We have another one, killed with axe. Protests erupt in Molo over youth leader's suspicious death. Yep, that was a big critic of the Nakuru government and the government just in general.
Yes.
Yep.
And that story also features on the front page of the Standard. Who wanted fire Molo activist dead? That's a question there. Rigiji asema Ruto is a pathological liar. Former DP accuses head of state of duping and betraying Mount Kenya and vows to rally masses to remove him in 2027 elections. So amesema this time tunamalizana na wewe 2027. Stories on page 4. But yes, fear and hope as Trump returns to power for his second term. Watu wengi hawajui what to expect.
Yes.
After the inauguration today, no one knows what to expect, but it is a different ball game altogether. And as far as American diplomacy, even America's internal policy, and as far as immigrants are concerned, je, Wakenya wengi wanataka kujua bado tutaweza kupata visa ya kwenda US. President steps up campaign to court Western The president continues with his tour of Western Kenya, and he's being accompanied by so many leaders, including, and this is interesting, the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Yes.
Should the Speaker of the National Assembly really be accompanying the president on political rallies?
Ni kwao.
Ni swali tu nimeuliza because hiyo picha iko hapo na Weta. Papa wa Roma ameketi pale. Matters business.
And on Business Daily, shrinking home ownership rate tests Ruto housing plan. And a new survey reveals that the share of Kenyan households owning homes has shrunk by at least 3 percentage points over a decade. Now, fresh data by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS, shows that the share of households that own homes dipped to 61% in 2024 from 64% 11 years ago, while the numbers of those living in rentals exceeded homeowners.
Wow. It's a very interesting
Hatutaki
report.
kujenga.
Watu wataki kuown manyumba. Ama pengine si ati hawataki. Hawana uwezo. Hawana uwezo.
Yep.
The other story there, Ndindi Nyoro books 200 million shilling gain from Kenya Power stake. He's among the biggest individual owners of equity in the Kenya Power company.
President top officials' wealth to be published on IMF pressure. Now, the Treasury will start making public the wealth of top state officers, including the president and his deputy, after caving into pressure from the IMF. That is interesting. Inafaa hivyo.
Unaona kama ita happen?
Tuacha tuone.
Tuseme William Ruto ako na nyumba Transmara, kuna nyumba Sugoi,
What's the worst that
kuna
could
nyumba
happen? We saw that with Rigiji.
alafu unajua nyumba nyingine inasemekana ni yake alafu ikose kuwa kwa hiyo list.
Yeah. All right, that's the top stories on Business Daily. Yep.
All right, so let's take a look at the cartoons because we see what the discussions are there. Yes, this is a White House. This is a cartoon on the Daily Nation. So apparently, notice invited guests only. This is the White House.
Yes.
Africa iko hapa nje. Na tulisema nini? With a begging bowl. Mbeho, we've not been invited. So with Trump, by the way, Trump feels nothing for Africa.
Yeah.
Feels very little. So how will African leaders relate to this new administration coming in? Yes. And you can see Donald Trump there looking through the window. Sema, only invited guests. Msikuja kuombaomba hapa.
The
On the
merger. That is Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. Pale nyuma kuna Rais William Ruto na wheelbarrow yake.
So any wheelbarrow. Now, so who's the wheelbarrow? Is following the merger between UDA and ANC parties. They merged to form UDA. Now that's the interesting thing. So ANC ilienda hapi. Ati UDA na ANC zilimerge zikakuwa UDA.
The A and UDA.
Hakuna merger, one party was swallowed. That's simple. So now they're trying to say that the wheelbarrow is actually the Prime Cabinet Secretary, but no. If you ask me, I think it's just one of the nondescript members of UDA party now. Yes. ANC ilimezwa na UDA. That's the cartoon on the Standard. Finally, on the People Daily.
I am here to stay. Huyo ni Raila Amolo Odinga ndani ya tumbo ya fish. Another Jonas story.
Kena ni neve.
Nilikwama ndani ya tumbo ya samaki.
And Ruto's government is a fish. So hapa tunaona UDA imemeza ANC. ANC ikakuwa wheelbarrow. Hata ODM, Raila Odinga alimezwa na Ruto's government, which is a fish. And he's saying, I'm here to stay. Meanwhile, the cracks emerging within the party. Yeah. With the Secretary General being very vocal on the identity of the party and maintaining ODM's identity. Meanwhile, the CSs who have been co-opted into the broad-based government are the ones screaming the loudest in support of President William Ruto. So ODM iko wapi? Imemezwa na samaki kama ANC. Those are the cartoons today. The Standard does not have a cartoon this morning. Instead, on that space reserved for cartoon, they have a photo of women blocking a section of Jogoo Road in protest after their stalls were demolished by the government in Botela area yesterday. So yes, these are the cartoons and these are the dailies today, both locally and in the region. And we'll be looking at this with my panelists after the break. Today, as I promised, Dr. Mumbingaru, former MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly and a former Thika Town Mayor, makes a comeback to State of the Nation. Senator Danson Mungatana of Tana River also will be with us, and Samuel Pogisio, former Majority Leader in the Senate and a former ICT Minister in the Kibaki II administration. You don't want to miss this conversation. Later on, Monday Blitz coming up at 8, discussions around sports, and after that...
Combating deforestation with Amos Wemanya responsive campaigns lead at Greenpeace Africa. And Reverend Wenjiku Gashungi later on from 9:30 on building a better world.
All right. So start tweeting, start posting and interacting with us on our social media pages.
TV47 Kenya on Facebook and YouTube, TV47 News KE. The hashtag is Morning Cafe. My ex handle is Ann_Odida.
My ex handle is at Fred Indemuli. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips. And the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Good morning once again. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 this lovely Monday morning, the 20th of January, a big day in the US. And that features also on our front pages when US sneezes. That's a big headline on the front page of the Standard, talking about the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States. Quite a number of local dailies have given prominence, at least to that story, on the front pages. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning. Let me start from my extreme right. That's Samuel Pogisio, Senate Majority Leader in the 12th Parliament, also ICT Minister Kibaki to Administration. Good morning, karibu sana.
Good morning.
Danson Mungatana, Senator Tana River, also joins us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. And allow me to welcome once again Honorable Dr. Mumbingaru, the former MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, and also served as Mayor of Thika Town. And Dr. Ngaru, once we were chatting just before we started the show, you asked me a question. Did we say a prayer when we started this off this year? And I realized we never did, even with our Monday panel. So probably I'll ask you to say a short prayer before we even continue with this discussion.
Thank you very much. I thought Waziri Pogiso did it, but I'll do it for him.
Yes.
And first I want to say Happy New Year to you all in the studio. Can we just say a short prayer? Our Father and our God, we just want to thank you. We come proclaiming that you are our God, and this is your nation, and we are your people. It is you, Lord, who has brought us this far. And though many times our requests, our needs surpass the many things you have done for us, here we come to say this far, yes, this far you have brought us. Here we come, Lord, carrying the griefs of this nation, fears and doubts and complications. Here we come, hoping and praying that you will hear us and that you will hold us by your righteous right hand and walk us through the year. Here we come as leaders. Father, we come as parents of a hurting nation. We come as professionals who have been or feel let down in many ways. We come as leaders confessing our inadequacies. And therefore, Father, you are our hope. You are our everything. We surrender to your will. And for us who are here, Lord, allow us to use this space and these equipments to serve you, to serve this country, that we become instruments of peace. We become the balm of this country. That, Lord, you use us for the great work that you have for each one of us. Bless this station. Bless every staff member who works here, and let them be an example of what this big medium can do for the good of this country. We pray for other leaders. We pray for parents and our economy and security and everything. We surrender to you. And we know that you love us and you will not let us down. We have hope that just because you have given us an opportunity to lay our requests to you this morning, you will answer us at your opportune time. We thank you, we praise you, and we pray this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Mumbingaru, for that prayer. It is never too late. It's just the 20th of January, and at least now we've had a prayer to kickstart the year. Back to the headlines today. A lot of very interesting political headlines locally, but of course we cannot ignore what's happening globally. The big news coming from the US with the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th president, and a lot of our dailies talk about fear. And I think on the front page of the People Daily it says, fear and hope as Trump returns to power. On the Standard, when US sneezes, there's a bit of anxiety across the globe and also here in Kenya and Africa on what exactly Trump's second term as president portends for us. Let's start with you, Senator. There's so much expectation, and I know you're a member of the Pan-African Parliament from the continent, but the accusation has always been that our relationship with the US is always with a begging bowl, and I think that has been captured by the cartoon on the Daily Nation today, that that's the best relationship Africa has with the US. But when it's Trump in power, he's least interested in our begging behavior. This is a depiction of our relationship. Africa depicted there outside the fence to the White House, Trump talking through the window and there's a notice, invited guests only. So Africa is not even invited. Can this relationship ever change?
We have had a challenge. Speaking from the African Parliament's perspective, we've had a big challenge because unlike the European Union, who negotiate their trade pacts, their foreign relations as a group on the global table, Africa tends to be disjointed, so that you don't have the African Union going to the global table for negotiations as Africa Union. So countries that see this weakness have always taken advantage of this weakness. So then you have the Chinese calling individual African heads of state to a China-Africa conference. And then you have the French president, Macron, calling African presidents there. And I remember several of these countries, calling Africa to go to discussions, but not as Africa Union. They call all those presidents. And this has become a very big issue with us at the Parliament of Africa. And we were hoping that it would change, because a red flag was raised at some point when, during the inauguration of the new King of England, some African heads of state raised the issue: why are we put in a bus when some other heads of states, like the American head of state, was put in his own vehicle? Why are we being treated like this? So we have a challenge that we are not united when we go to discuss issues at the global table. And that is why America would treat us differently from, say, the European Union. China on its own, it doesn't need any friend. On its own is big enough. Russia is big enough. But then Africa needs to be together. And for us, this is an aspiration, and we continue to push it. And our prayer is that we will make progress. Okay. But yes, because we are small states with very little economic power on our own, standing individual states, America takes advantage of us. Europe, the European Union takes advantage of us. China takes advantage of us. So it is our hope that with the new dispensation, with our new Africa Union chairman, for example, and maybe a stronger Africa Union, we will achieve some of the things. For example, sitting at the United Nations Security Council. That's something that Africa has longed for a long time. And I think the way it is going, we might get a seat. Then the question is, which country will sit there? Is it Kenya? Is it even within ourselves? We've had an opportunity to sit there before. No, like a permanent seat now for Africa. That's what we have been agitating for. So we have a challenge, and I know Donald Trump will take advantage of this, because if he comes and he's meeting Uganda, he's meeting South Africa, he's meeting Kenya, he's meeting Morocco alone, he has the advantage. And by the way, let me give you one last point on that. America, when they go for trade negotiations, they will fill this house with like 30 negotiators, and they are there negotiating for their trade pacts. You, in Kenya, maybe you have only 2 guys who are qualified and who go for those negotiations. When you reach there, you find other African countries with even smaller numbers. So even to come together to beat or to get trade pacts that are favorable to us is a struggle. These are the realities that we are living with.
It has always been assumed, Bwana Pugisio, that a democratic administration in the US would be friendlier to Africa. Yet we've seen even in history that probably sometimes even Republican administrations are fairer to African states. Issues like PEPFAR came from a Republican administration. So this assumption that a Republican president may not really be friendly to Africa, is it really true?
Oh, and let me begin by saying that to congratulate Donald Trump on his inauguration, upcoming inauguration. Is deserved it, getting a second chance against all odds. So congratulate him. Also congratulate what you call the handing over of power in the U.S. It's very smooth, whether you liked it or not. The outgoing President Biden went very quietly, and there's no issues. So I want to congratulate the Republicans. Come back. I agree with you that there's a tendency for people to think that the Democrats are kinder to Africans than the Republicans. That's not true. My experience is actually that Republican policies are quite soft, quite progressive when it comes to Africa. And as we have seen, sometimes people thought that when Obama became president, we thought maybe things would now be easy for us. It didn't necessarily become easy for us. And Donald Trump might not visit a lot of African countries, but the policies that the Republicans put in place, his policies will probably favor us in other ways. And also, you must realize that the world actually may put Africa down, but they realize that they need Africa all the time. Africa is an open market. Africa is the potential market for everybody. For everything that you need to sell, Africa is available. And then Africa is also a mineral rich, and a lot of the minerals that are needed for technology are actually based here in Africa. And everybody would want to have a piece of Africa. And so whether you like it or not, you have to develop very friendly policies towards Africa in a way, condemning in some ways, but necessarily finding a way of getting some of the resources that belong to Africa. We have very interesting resources here. The democratic government of Joe Biden sent here an ambassador who had a different approach. Mm-hmm. Meg almost became a member of the Kenya cabinet. She as though she was actually part of this government. And so now she's gone. We look forward to seeing the Republican ambassador who is coming. My tendency is, I think, that the Republican ambassadors tend to hold us to account more. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're going to see. They are friends, but they will hold us to account on issues that are, for example, sensitive issues like the current situation of abductions and so on. They have already spoken, and they will hold us to account on those particular matters. Mm-hmm. So I think we should be looking forward to a great 4 years with Donald Trump. I mean, he has other issues he's dealing with. He's dealing with the Middle East and the borders and so on. But I think the policies towards Africa, well, we wait to see who is sent to the African countries as ambassadors.
But we've seen the kind of relationship that this administration and President William Ruto, and you mentioned part of it, has had with the Biden administration, Meg Whitman, the state visit, it's not even a year gone by. And that probably Kenya would have hoped that the Democratic or Joe Biden's administration would have lingered a little longer, at least even through extension by Kamala Harris. But now that everything changes, do you really expect that a lot will change for Kenya in as far as the relationship between this administration and Donald Trump?
If I may say, that Kenya is one of those blue-eyed nations in the world, by the way, and there's no difference whether it's the Republican or Democrats. Kenya is still at the center of interest. It's us who mismanage our own country. We create problems for ourselves. But really, everybody wants to have a piece of Kenya. They want to do business with Kenya. Partly because, as you know, on average, we are the more democratic in the region. We have our elections regularly. We have all these things that are happening. Financially, sometimes we have an advantage when we go ask for loans and things like that. So to run Africa, you develop centers in Africa that are critical. And Nairobi And Kenya is one of those centers that's attractive to the world. So I don't expect that we can be punished for being associated with the Democratic Party before. No. I think that every new government that comes, for example, now when the Republicans are in power, I think the first thing they will do in Africa is to think, how do we relate to Kenya? And already, as you can see, when you see people beginning to move into Kenya in advance, American diplomats and other dignitaries coming in advance, you know they're interested in this country. They did that when William Ruto took over. When Uhuru took over, they did that. So they're interested in who runs Kenya, and they're interested also in how they can help Kenya retain its prominence on the African continent. And I mean, everything is supposed to be there to work for us. It's just us who need to organize ourselves in such a way that we retain our respect on the international platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Dr. Mumbingaru, I'd like you to have your take on this as well. A lot could change even for individual Kenyans who are hoping to travel to the US. Donald Trump has been very vocal about immigration, about visa laws and all this, and a lot will change for individuals in Kenya as well. What are your expectations of this Trump administration?
Fred, thank you very much. Before I take on that, allow me to pass my condolences to a woman legend, Advocate Judith Ogori, the late. Those of us who've been in the women movement and know her contribution to family law. She has a colleague here, and it's not only about being a woman. She has been a legend in the women movement. My condolences to the family and to the legal fraternity, and that God may give them the grace to go through this difficult time. Also to the parents of the many young people who didn't really have a good Christmas and New Year, and probably are still mourning. And therefore, we are where we are, and hoping that as we relate to the new American government, the God of grace of restoration will have his way in this country. The relationship between us as a country and the Americans has always been cordial. We strive to have a good relationship. There are times when we have had ambassadors who have really put the government on its toes. We know, I look back at when we were going through the multi-party, the beginning of multi-party politics, and we had ambassadors who would join and hide our opposition leaders and arrange for their evacuation and all that kind of thing. But I think we have not learned enough. America has a lot of interests in this country because we have the UN units, big units here. And so they have their interests in this country. And there are demonstrations that come and they take over, really do not take advantage of the need to collaborate on equal terms because of the units that we host. I'm suspecting that the new administration, the Trump administration, is not going to be very kind with us. They have already made pronunciations that give an indication that it's not going to be a smooth ride. And I like it that way. We need somebody to tell us, as a country, you've got so much to your advantage. You are wasting your time. You are letting your children run to other countries, yet you have so much in this country. We need them to remind us that actually it is us who they need, not the other way.
The other way around. Allow me to cut you short there because it's time for us to take a break, but we'll be back to continue with these conversations. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indemuli. We continue looking at the headlines. And of course, in the US, the big news is the inauguration of President Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States. It's taking place today. It's very cold, freezing temperatures in Washington, D.C. actually. The news is that this inauguration will actually be held indoors. Yeah, it will be the second inauguration to be held indoors since 1985. Ronald Reagan's public inauguration. It was held indoors because it is about -4 degrees, -3 degrees Celsius in Washington, D.C. The other story is about Kenya's mission to Haiti, which is probably one of Kenya's main interests in as far as its relationship with the U.S. 217 more police officers landed in Haiti for that mission yesterday. I want us to come back home and take a look at the big headlines, and of course, Uhuru Factor is a big headline on the Daily Nation, but this time round to do with Matiang'i's 2027 bid. The front page of Taifa Leo has a different headline, still to do with the former president. Vita baridi, nipe nikupe. Katika hafla ya Bungoma jana, Rais Ruto alionekana kumfokea Uhuru, aliyewahimiza vijana wapiganie haki zao wanazonyimwa na serikali. Senator, let's start from there. This push and pull has always been there. People expected that if at all those two leaders wakipatana, then all will be well. We saw them meet a few months back, actually last month, and people thought, okay, fine, everything is going to be different now. Then the former president makes a very simple, calm statement, and all hell breaks loose. Are we reading too much into the former president's remarks last week?
First of all, what was the function? If I recall well, I thought that function was something to do with the Kenyatta Foundation, if I'm not wrong.
It was a funeral, actually.
A funeral
It was a funeral?
Yes.
Okay.
Of a relative.
Of a relative, okay. Now, what was the function about? I think the placing of that whole thing should be understood in that context. Because sometimes I can make a political statement, say in a funeral, say in not a fundraiser, but say in a wedding. And it's not something I've thought about, because if it's really a person of the caliber of Uhuru Kenyatta, if he wants to speak to the youth, really, he knows how to get them around. He knows how to get youth from Tana River all the way to Turkana, all the way to, from coast to coast, and speak to them. Then that's a serious meeting. But when you stand, it's I don't know who died. Maybe it's a young man who passed on, I don't know. And then as you are talking, you just say that young people should wake up and fight for their rights. Their wealth is being taken, fight for your rights. I don't think it was something that was really like a political move that has been calculated, planned, and therefore it's being executed. First of all, execution of something to do with youth, you have to really spend, think, and plan. Have a proper planning team to do it. So for me, I did not think it is even worth something to talk about. I mean, this country, we are a free nation. People can say whatever they want to say. We have brought up our children to be democratic. Definitely in my family, my kids, the way they speak to me is not the way I used to speak to my father. We are in a whole different, situation here. Yeah, even when you have prayers and you finish the prayers, your son or daughter will ask you, "But Dad, what was that all about?" You know. So we are living in a very different environment, and I don't think, from where I stand, I don't think Uhuru was speaking like something that he has sat down, thought about, he's executing. So
we're reading too much into it.
In my opinion, my humble opinion, there was absolutely no need for even a response. So if I stand up and I say Gen Z should fight for their rights, it's just like when we were in church this Sunday. I attended a Nairobi church here, and a pastor was saying that last week he spoke about tattoos, and he said that it is Jesus that is important. This is what Paul has taught us, not other things. So whether you have a tattoo, whether you have dreadlocks, it does not determine whether you will go to heaven or not. And a statement like that, he said that it was trending. That's what he was telling us. And I thought, but what's the big thing about that? So I don't know, maybe...
The president did not take it kindly, Bonapogisio. He felt the need to respond. And not just him, we've seen also a number of cabinet secretaries directly responding to the former president. Are they reading too much into something that the senator says it shouldn't be a big deal?
Fred, I want to agree with the senator on that. But that's reading too much into a family comment. I mean, this was really just basically a comment to a family. He even referred to his own daughters, his own children, and told them, you guys fight for your rights. This statement of fight for your rights is what we say every day. Everybody says it. I don't know why it becomes so controversial when it's said by Uhuru Kenyatta. Everybody says it. Every day, we tell our young people, even your children at home, please fight, improve your situation. Anyway, there's something that has been happening in Kenya lately, is that the president and his team have been quite jittery, quite on the edge for a while now. I don't know what's happening. From the days of Natembeya and Ichung'wah, you know, when Natembeya spoke, you think, why would anybody think that was almost a fight against the government? That wasn't even a fight. But the vitriol and the tirade that came on that funeral day, you would think there was a serious matter. And then came any situation. I think we had Muturi speaking the other day, and everybody jumps on him for what he says. So the government has been kind of on the edge for some reason. And so for this matter that Uhuru said a comment, and I didn't expect the president to comment on it. He didn't even have to comment because he has his hawks. He has those sycophants who are ready to jump on the bandwagon. And most of them actually are coming from Dr. Mumbi's wing. And they have taken over. They have overrun everybody else in this matter. And I would like to say that for the president, although he didn't name Uhuru, he didn't even say it, anything. Neither did Uhuru name anybody when he said those words. A bit of euphemism was applied. I mean, it was a very soft, NATO Vita Baridi pale. I would like to advise that if you can overlook some things and be magnanimous enough and just allow some things to disappear alone on their own. Because I don't believe that Uhuru's comment would cause any civil strife, would cause the young people tomorrow to go on demonstration. He's just stating an act of a parent saying to the children of Kenya, please don't be used badly, don't be exploited. It's the same thing we say to them. The same thing, in fact, President Ruto said exactly the same words. He says, you young people don't be exploited. The opposite of that, or the meaning of that is really, stand firm and be strong. Yeah. So I do believe that it was overrated, it was misunderstood, and definitely I would hope that the relationship between the two leaders does not deteriorate.
Yes. Yet we've paid so much attention to any kind of gesture between these two leaders, any handshake, any smile, any laughter. Now, even a statement like this will be taken seriously. The media must have picked up on this because now the Daily Nation has taken a different strand. Who is President Uhuru Kenyatta supporting for 2027? Definitely as an extension of what he said. Now that he's taking the direction of Fred Matiang'i, yet his nominees to the cabinet were sworn in just the other day. What exactly? Are we really reading too much? Or could there be something underneath that we're trying to ignore?
Fred, I wouldn't speak on their behalf. But from where I sit, I look at it from two different angles. That as a leader, everything that we say, in whatever situation, we've got very many eyes and very many ears who are listening and would roll out our words to mean what we didn't want to say. It is true. It was in a family setting. The person who they were going to arrest wasn't a young person. He wasn't a young person. But I would think that the children of that person have got cousins and cousins and cousins of the Gena Kenyatta. And therefore, when he talked about his own daughter, he was speaking as a father. That could be the reason. It is true. those two gentlemen, the former and the current, have been buddies. And therefore, every move, even dusting a coat on the other person's jacket, I mean to remove something, will mean something. And they both know that the country is washing. In the same function, the president said he did not give any names for inclusion into the cabinet. Nobody picked that. It's not been rolled out like the one we are doing now. And that could have been big news because they were being sworn in just probably the same day. But the media avoided that bit. So I tend to look at a narrative that is created by the media, like this one about Matiang'i and whatever else, and ask myself from where I sit. Are we building a country? Are we also reading too much? But the fact is, anybody, including Senator Mungatana, who is currently in office, whatever he says in his county, whether ni wakati wa kahawa chungu, that's what they call it, I think something like that, it doesn't go unnoticed. So probably as a country we are going through a very difficult time, no doubt about it, and we are concentrating on issues that probably need to be looked at differently.
Okay. This is definitely, yes?
I sympathize with the leaders because they have become slaves of the positions they occupy. In fact, there is no that democracy to speak freely without being, without reading too much. And it is not only in politics. You go to churches, it's the same. You go to everywhere, they move around. It's like they are prisoners of the positions they hold.
Oh, yes, and definitely the president felt the need to respond to his predecessor on this issue. This is one of the stories covered by our reporters. Let's watch and see how the president responded to Uhuru Kenyatta.
President William Ruto today, accompanied by some leaders, attended interdenominational prayer service at Cheptais Boys High School in Mount Elgon constituency, Bungoma County. In his remarks, Ruto seemed to be offended by the recent remarks of the fourth President Uhuru Kenyatta on his call for the youth in the country to fight for their rights.
Kama wazazi, kama serikali, kama viongozi, tusiwapiganishe watoto wetu. These young people of Kenya, they don't need violence. They don't need confrontation. They want opportunities.
Kwamba mpira ni rahisi ukiwa wewe ni spectator hapo kando. Ingia kwa kiwanja ndio ujue hata uwezi kimbia hata kidogo.
Rais mstaafu alifanya yake, tukampatia nafasi yake, akamaliza. It cannot be business as usual. Wewe ukishastaafu, kaa nyumbani, ukae uone vitu zikiundwa.
Kwa nini ati wewe wananchi wachochewe kuharibu serikali? Na nchi hii wakati itapata shida, hata yeye, hata kama ako na mali nyingi, yeye pia atakuwamo ndani hapa. Si ati atahepa. Hapana. Unless ahepe mapema kabla maneno haijakuwa mbaya.
President Ruto has however said that the merger of the UDA and the ANC party is an effort to strengthen the unity of Kenyans and not tribalism.
Na tumeunganisha chama ya ANC na chama ya UDA, sasa ndizi ni chama kimoja kwa sababu that is the spirit of unity. We are not uniting either as parties or even under the broad-based arrangement against other Kenyans or against any region or against any community or against any person.
Kuungana kwetu ni kwa sababu lengo la muhimu ni kuhakikisha kwamba yale ambayo anaamua, yale mazito mazito, tumpatie nafasi, tumuunge mkono.
Tutashirikiana kuhakikisha rais wetu anajenga nchi yetu vilivyo ili kutatua matatizo tuliyo nayo.
President Ruto has also assured Kenyans of the adequate security, saying that they will set up a border post at Chepkube Market along Kenya-Uganda border to fight counterfeit materials in the country.
Sasa hii Chepkube tutabadilisha ikuwe soko ya biashara, si ndio? Na nimekubaliana na nyinyi tutajenga pale border post.
The head of state has started his 6-day development tour in Western region. He is expected to steer the first payment of sugar bonus to farmers at Mumia Sugar Company in Kakamega County.
Muliona kwa magazeti ile program ya leasing ambayo ilikuwa imekwama kule kotini. Sasa tumeivunjilia mbali, tuanze tena upya.
Rais wetu alipata nchi ikiwa hali mbaya. Na ile mwendo amepiga hatua. Hata kama tusipohesabu vitu vingi, umeambiwa walimu wangapi wameandikwa kazi.
Wewe ukatuahidi kwamba kwa vile saa hii uchumi umekuwa sawa sawa, sasa wewe unaenda kufocus kwa zile miradi na kwa zile ahadi ambao uliambia Wakenya ili uweze kuzitimiza.
Na kushukuru kwamba tarehe 6 mwezi huu wa Januari serikali yako iliwachilia milioni 420 kwa mradi na fedha zinaitwa Cherry Fund, ukuzaji na kuimarisha uzao wa kahawa.
Yes, leaders from Western Kenya really felt the need to respond to the former president, the remarks he made during a funeral last week. Now, the media seems to have taken over and decided that Uhuru Kenyatta is someone of interest. And the Daily Nation talks about him supporting Matiang'i, Fred Matiang'i, former CS, for 2027. Now, we've seen President Uhuru Kenyatta previously support someone else who's not William Ruto. A repeat of the same would mean a lot. Are we really putting too much on the former president? Do you think, even as a politician, he would sit back and openly support a different candidate come 2027? That he would openly declare support for any candidate come 2027?
So let me say this. I think as many presidential candidates as they want to come, let them come. In fact, it is good for us who support William Ruto. Let us have 10 presidential candidates, 20, 30, it's okay. Because I say this and I say it again. Running for a presidential position, running to win, is a different matter from running just for the sake, so that you say you are a presidential candidate or something. Winning a presidential election is not a joke here in this country. But I would encourage them, in fact, let Matiang'i stand, let Kalonzo stand, let whoever stand, we have a very strong candidate in William Ruto. And the more for us, the merrier. I can tell you that the second year of any person in office, especially executive office, the presidency or the governorship, they are the most difficult ones. And we have sailed through that. Now, the results of the policies that we have put down, despite the fact that we lost the finance bill, will start yielding in the third year. And I can bet you, Fred, and any other Kenyans listening to me, that it would be very difficult to remove President Ruto. President Ruto is most likely going to win the next election. So even if you say that maybe Uhuru Kenyatta will support, we don't know for a fact. That's a story that is there, as you say. But when he was sitting as a president, he could not get his candidate elected. When he was having all the advantages of incumbency, he could not get his candidate elected, the candidate he supported. What makes you think that now he will defeat Ruto when now he is not having the advantages of the presidency and incumbency?
Do you think Uhuru Kenyatta will be interested in doing that, supporting someone else?
That is another question that needs to be discussed and argued, because I don't see what, you know, a lot of politics is about interest. So what is this interest that Uhuru would be pushing to remove the person who is in the office right now? I don't think, because if he's fighting for his Jubilee party, the Jubilee party is more or less disintegrated. It is also supporting the current president. So what is it? Is it a political party interest? Is it what? I don't see it. And then Uhuru himself doesn't have a record of being so vigorously political. Remember, his entrance into politics was very well, nicely assisted. From nominated, then he was made minister, all of us remember, and then later on he was supported by the then president. He didn't succeed. He became an opposition leader who was not fighting. You remember the days when he was an opposition leader. So really nothing much in terms of opposition story. So he's not an aggressive kind of politician. Even his campaigning, I mean, I was in those campaigns, the earlier ones. He would do his part, but I will tell you that William Ruto is a very aggressive politician. Mm-hmm. And we would do many more trips, even though we were in the same campaign during the TNA and it was TNA and RPU, I think. That other part. URP. Even during that time, that first time, when we were doing the campaigns, I was very associated then with TNA at that time. And I remember Duale and Ruto on the other side. But we were in the same team, fighting for the seat of the president. So we were in the same team. But they would cover many more rallies in a day than ourselves. I can say that for sure. So we are talking about a very aggressive politician. We are talking about a person who is occupying the presidency. And then we are talking about an ex-president who doesn't have any particular interests in protecting. What is he protecting? Because there's nothing that is not being fought. Nobody's really interested in, there's no particular need of dealing with Uhuru, as it were. Yeah, so from the look so many things, from the look of things, let me finish. From the look of things, I can state I don't see any reason why even somebody would want to fight Uhuru. Let him be, as an ex-president, to do his thing, to do his life, be a grandfather, ex-president, and he finishes.
Yet there are so many people, different groupings that would want the support of the former president. Even President William Ruto himself has gone to seek the same support. Probably it's the same thing happening here, that any candidate who's willing to take on President William Ruto come 2027 would want to have such a backing behind him. Are you saying that some of these headlines could be engineered to try and swing people to think in a certain way?
Fred, again, this is a case of overreading or overreaching, really, on the life of the former president. And he never spoke about Matiang'i anywhere. And where the people found that connection, I don't know. However, as it's been said, I can imagine when William Ruto is no longer president, people will still go to him to ask for his support. say, because he has a remnant, he has some kind of following still left with him. He still has influence somewhere. So it's one of those things. In fact, even Mheshimiwa Mugatana knows, when he was not re-elected, people will still come to him and say, please, join us. We need you. I mean, this is just a very normal political scheming in Kenya. It's something that you'll try and find somebody. So if anybody goes to President Uhuru, former President Uhuru, and says, can I get your blessing? He would definitely answer and probably give everybody his blessing or something like that. But the thing about it is that there's been very bad blood established from the very beginning of the Kenya Kwanza administration, from the day they were sworn in. That day was the beginning of bad blood between the two presidents, actually. Because and then there was this thing about raiding his farm and then refusing to pay him his dues and so on and so on. It was very bad. And so when you see a president, a former president, acting sometimes like that, there's that thing that I keep talking about called the trust deficit. Mm-hmm. And so what I think President William Ruto has to work on is it is his responsibility to gain the trust of the former president. You know, and I think it's very important for him to be the one to reach out to the former president. I said before, be magnanimous. Don't be held back by what the hawks tell you. Be magnanimous as a president. Be the one to reach out to the people, even those that you don't like. Because to have the spine of a president, to be able to be a president, you have to be, even those things that they say about you, you have to be very strong. You must be able to live with the fact that people will insult you, they will speak behind your back, they will say stories about you. But you are the president of the Republic of Kenya. And so once you begin to react as though you doubt your position, then you start attacking other people in response. There are people who are going to do that job for you. So that's always been my advice, that let's not be quick and hot-tempered and so on as a president. I do believe that it's mostly the people around the president who are supposed to advise him, will probably say to the president, hey, you've been insulted. So, do you know what people say about Donald Trump? What people say about Joe Biden, and it's very in public. But they don't go out to try and diminish or extinguish those people. So I do want us, as the democracy that Kenya is, first of all, to allow Uhuru Kenyatta his own space to decide whom he supports and whom he doesn't support. But because he's a statesman and a former president who ran this country for 10 years, whether in a good way or not, he is now what do you call him? He's a senior statesman, even for the African continent. They use him now a lot. They ask him to help here and there. It is up to the incumbent to prepare for himself a safe landing when he is no longer president. Because how you treat your predecessors is exactly how you're going to be treated. And I think for Kenya, we have set a precedent that we respect our former presidents. We honor them. We give them a good place until the day they are not able to live anymore here. So why are we beginning badly? And I think that's why. But on the matter of Matiang'i, I understand from my reading recently that it's actually the Gen Zs who actually have been talking about Matiang'i more than anybody else. Mm-hmm. So if you want to ask the question who is bringing out the name of Matiang'i, it's the Gen Zs. And it's their right and their freedom. Okay. And I think we should just allow Uhuru to have his peace. Mm-hmm. And I think let us respect him.
But we see Uhuru Kenyatta definitely has his political rights, democratic as any other Kenyan, to support whoever and to vote for anybody else. We look at the US now that the US is also relevant this time around, and we saw former presidents campaigning vigorously for the candidate of their choice, and it is not seen as something out of the ordinary. Why do we feel like it's a bit uncomfortable if a former president in Kenya actually has a different candidate of choice?
Fred, from where I sit, anyone who overlooks the influence of Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya's politics may be having some miscalculations. From where I sit, the two gentlemen know each other more than any of us here. The current was the deputy to the former. How they disagreed, they both understand. So I will not make a mistake of overlooking Uhuru Kenyatta's influence in the Kenya politics. Number two, whether we like it or not, we are regional. Mount Kenya region, we have Western, and you could see the Western group talking. And we have the Rift Valley, and we have all those, we have Nyanza and Coast. There is a notion that the people in the Mount Kenya region are waiting for Uhuru Kenyatta to say something. It may not be as pronounced, but his word will add. And therefore, it is important that we allow them to operate at their level. But I still don't think that Uhuru Kenyatta is so careless, and I call it that with due respect, to come out in the third year of the current regime to propose his candidate for 2027. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't include Uhuru Kenyatta in the list of such fools. I'm sorry. Okay. Because he has his own interests that wouldn't allow him to be that careless. In the business world, he has a stake. Mm-hmm. In the community's interest, he has a stake. He's still a father to a generation of our children. So he has so much. And then I think he respects himself. Mm-hmm. There are leaders who probably do not have that self-worth of respecting themselves and the space that they have. Okay. One of my colleagues have talked about him in the regional and global stage. He's being useful. And that tells me that he will not allow himself to come out in the third year to be part of dividing the country, identifying a candidate, and doing those kind of things. I want to thank my neighbor here for his confidence in the strong candidate that they have. I connect to the ground fairly well, including where he comes from. It's a different story, a totally different story. And that different story is different even in the region where the president comes from. So I think it is too early to talk about the strength of any of the candidates. Okay. My last comment on this is that wisdom demands that any president in his first term does not create so many enemies if they are interested in having a second term. My simple observation from where I sit is that the current regime is stepping on too many toes. Too many.
Unnecessarily.
Unnecessarily. And those of them that are around him probably would tell him in passing, it's time to avoid stepping on people's toes. And it is not only politicians. He stepped on toes in the religious the sector, in professionals, everywhere. You find that many people are complaining, and it's not healthy in the first term.
Okay.
So I would relook on the confidence of a win in the second term.
And it's interesting that you say that it could be too early to start gauging the strength of any candidate. But definitely it's not too early for the kind of political heat we are seeing. We've just seen the merger, whether we may call it a merger or one party swallowing another, because UDA, they said they merged with ANC, but then the byproduct was UDA. So is it a merger or a swallowing of parties? Gachagua, there's a headline on page 5 of the Daily Nation. He's saying, expect my new party in 14 days.
Yes.
Right now, that means we're not even halfway the first term of President William Ruto. At the same time, ODM, which is the second biggest parliamentary party, is suffering a serious identity crisis. The Secretary General says this, the other people say the other. Definitely, political heat in Kenya is growing. The issue of political parties is also huge, meaning that people are getting ready for 2027. Is all this for nothing, Senator? Something definitely is wrong. People are feeling that it's time to prepare for elections.
It's true. The political heat is heating, let me just say, because President is preparing. You know, he's a candidate. He is a candidate on his own. So he's preparing, and one of the things he believes is a good move is for him to have a huge political party. Remember, this is something he hasn't started today. He has talked about it, and I know because I have also talked to him about this. He has talked about a plan and his dream of having a political party that will unite people across board, across religion, across tribe, so that that political party will only be espousing policies as against another political party or movement or whatever that will also unite people across religion, across regions, across tribes, so that then the competition is on ideas. Okay, so if you understand where William Ruto is coming from, he wants, in his thinking, he wants to have such a big organization competing against another organization. So the idea should not be misunderstood that we are swallowing or we are trying to kill other political parties. No, it is an idea. It is an idea like you want to make a massive movement like the ANC, you know, which even has other political affiliations within it, so that you are selling an idea that if we came into government, these are our policies. But that is not to say that we want to kill other political parties. I mean, as a matter of fact, in the same sitting in Western, there was their political party which had been swallowed and another political party which is still operating independent, that is Ford Kenya, but is supporting UDA, and others that are affiliated. So I think it's a matter of understanding that thinking. The hope is that in future, this regionalism, this tribalism would be consistently defeated at the polls, so that people then wake up to the realities that, with Kenyans, if you want to be president, don't sell your region, don't sell your tribe. You will never make it. But if you want to be president, sell a policy. Tell people this is what you want to achieve, and then get people to support what you think. It's just like a governorship. Many governors, and from the areas we come from, like in Tana River, it's very difficult for you. In fact, it's impossible for you to become a governor there if you are selling your tribe. You have to think beyond that, and try and get coalitions and stuff like that. So the Kenyan people who are listening to me should understand that the hope we have as UDA in bringing people together is not to kill other movements. It's not to destroy anyone. It is to build, actually, a massive movement that is bound by an idea so that we can compete against other ideas. And the best idea, may it win.
But we've seen previously that political parties that have dissolved to form one major party assume a different identity. At the end, URP and TNA merged and formed Jubilee, and it became something else. But UDA merging with the ANC gives out UDA. Either way, we're still discussing political parties without even getting halfway through his first term. If you look at the dailies in Tanzania, because we look at them, this is their election year. This is when they're starting to have political headlines. We are more than 2.5 years away, yet everyone is forming a party now. ODM is discussing whether or not they can have a presidential candidate now. What is wrong with us? Because these parties, apart from being vehicles for an election, they serve no other purpose.
Fred, we have an advantage and a disadvantage. Advantage is that we are politically active throughout. And that's actually what shapes our country and keeps the government in check. Without these activities, by the way, the government could run over us and just do whatever they wanted to do. So keeping active is important. However, to start merging and preparing for elections is a bit difficult. It's as though the president is preparing for a snap election in this country. It's as though he knows that he's going to call for a snap election, which I don't know whether it's constitutional or not. But it is in this respect that I think worries people. But formations of political parties is a continuous process. I mean, for people who want to start forming their political parties and starting registering them, that's a continuous process. There's no limit. It's in Kenya only, within the region, where you're allowed to start campaigning from day one.
Led by the president himself.
Exactly. And so there's people who are campaigning all through. If you went to Uganda, you will not be allowed to campaign until, I think, like 1 or 2 months before election. Tanzania is the same, and so on, so on. So I do believe that we're unique in that sense, and we must live within that uniqueness and accept it, because it's been led by none other than the president himself. So now, every Sunday, there will be campaign in the church. And so, so now if you want to start campaigning, you just think of Sunday, and you go to a church. And that's the new arena for campaigns now. And yet, remember, churches had banned some of these things. I do want to say this. If you're kicked out of a political party, like Eshagwa was, you definitely will start your own outfit. You'll definitely want to start an outfit that will take care of yourself, or you join another outfit. But on this one, the confusion in this one is that you have a party called ODM, which existing members of ODM are actually pledging to support William Ruto in the coming year. Why are they pledging? Because they are already working for him in the government. And that's the trick. If you've been appointed to be a minister, your party may not even allow you to say the things you say, but you are dragged by being a member of the cabinet. And so some people pronounce things that you would actually wonder what happened to them. Because you belong to a political party called ODM. And you're pronouncing a candidate for ODM. And you're not actually the person supposed to pronounce that candidate for ODM. And that's why there's confusion within ODM, because Secretary General, and I heard yesterday the governor of Kisii raising the same issues, and he's a very senior member. I think he's like a deputy party leader in ODM. So we don't know which section to listen to. And so we think that Mudavadi realizes, if I don't rush quickly to join this thing and merge, I could be swept over. He's making a decision that will save him and his job for the next, for the next 3-4 years. The good thing about it is that I think William Ruto respects those agreements, so that when it comes to trying to remove anybody from cabinet, he can't remove this one, because now he's the leader of a merged party. And I don't know whether he's stronger now or he's weaker now that he's in another party. So look where he is.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing. It's basically been thrown out of the bus, literally. And there is no excitement about that merger, by the way. In that region, there's no excitement. I don't know whether there was enough public participation before you moved in. And the one who is supporting, and I saw Wetangula clapping to that, but he himself has not allowed himself to merge. So I think he's watching and saying, no, keep your distance, but support that. Okay. So in reality, it works against Mr. Mudavadi. Because once you are in the fold, you're no longer a strong partner. And I don't know whether that was advised to him. On the other side, you see Wetangula is keeping his position as the leader of his party so that he remains relevant and strong. The attempts to remove him as speaker would be very difficult, although they were there. So yeah, I want to say that Kenyans are active, and they will continue to be active. In my own county, campaigns are going on for governorship, as if the elections are tomorrow, and many other places. And so I don't think we should worry about it so much, because the people don't have much activity of their own.
Apart from the politics.
Because of poverty. People don't have activities of their own. You see, if the country was empowered, if the citizens were empowered, everybody would be doing their own things, and there would be no time for these large rallies that appear all over. You can actually tell this economic situation of a country by how many idle people are there. And people who you can call a rally and instantly you have people. If people had money in their hands, they would be busy doing their own businesses. It should be a worry that we think we are popular because people have come to our rallies. But some of these people don't have anything else to do.
But as he has said, ODM is definitely watching and getting confused on what should happen. Other parties are merging, others are being swallowed. ODM is there, the Secretary General doesn't know, is struggling to maintain the identity of the party. He has said it himself, that we have to maintain the identity of this party. Yet, some members of ODM are the loudest supporters of UDA. Definitely something is wrong somewhere. This is the second biggest parliamentary party as we speak.
Fred, ODM is not confused. The persons who are confused are those persons who have joined government and they have to sing the tune of government. The Secretary General is actually telling them, go work, make the government systems work. You are helping to stabilize the country. When things work, it is good for us, but there's no confusion. ODM is intact. I am a member of ODM from inception. I have not moved. I am in an area where the ODM is a story. So it is important for us to know that the person under the wheelbarrow there, here, is actually doing it for himself. But once you speak to the persons who hold that party dear, they may not agree to be on top of that wheelbarrow. And this is the disaster in our political party systems, that we want to move. It's a mass movement without interrogating what the party stands for. I say it without any fear of contradiction. The position that the Secretary General is issuing to the public is the official position. We are a party. we are not going to wind up. In fact, we'll have candidates all over.
It is only 25 days to the AUC elections.
Yes.
The cartoon on the People Daily portrays what's happening to your party leader.
Yeah.
That he's been swallowed by a fish like the biblical Jonah heading to Nineveh.
Yeah.
And he's saying he's here to stay. So even him, the way UDA swallowed ANC, there are indications that UDA is also attempting to swallow ODM.
No. I think we also need to be to understand that our party leader has been hosted, let me put it in quote. He's been hosted by the president, but not his political party, not UDA. Because the position of the African Union, the country has to be involved. And the interpretation and the drumbeats of him joining UDA is not a correct position. But he is also magnanimous not to muddy the relationship in Uda, because he needs the country to back him up to the end. But he is family ODM. I can say that without any fear of contradiction. Yeah.
We have about 2 minutes, so just a parting shot as we end the show. Senator, just a parting shot.
Okay, mine is to just tell people that this government is delivering on very many fronts, and the president is preparing for his election. And I would urge also all of us who are supporting him to also prepare, because you will not be elected because the president has been elected. You know, if he merges with UDA, with ANC or ODM or whatever, he's preparing his presidential politics. It doesn't mean, it will not translate to you when you are senator for Tana River or a governor or a MP or a women rep or MCA. So I would just say that keep serving. If you are serving well and you are doing your work, you are in touch with the ground, you don't have to worry whether it is party Y, party ya Punda, party ya Kuku, party ya Nani. Just do your work and serve the people. This party politics may not be really relevant if you are doing your work. Okay. It is them who will come looking for you if you are in touch with the ground.
Okay, Bwana Pogisi, your parting shot.
I'd like to say this for this year, hoping that this year can be a different year for Kenya. Can we all be able to say what's wrong, what's ailing our country, and not be victimized for it? And whether it's said by a politician or non-politician, it's important for us to know that. Can peace prevail in this country? Can we end abductions? Can we end the injustices and allow our country to gain the international stature that it has? And I'd like to say to those who are advising the president also, and making appointments in this country, can we pay attention to all regions in the country?
All right, thank you. Finally, Honorable Ngaru.
Fred, my plea for this year is that we have got so much to deal with as a country. And therefore, the issue of formations of political parties and mergers and things political should take a back seat. The president, in his preparation of his second term, should not be in amassing numbers, but in his delivery of services to the Kenyans. Okay. And I think we should be sensitive that the education sector is in shambles, the health sector is in shambles, the economy is in shambles. That should be our priority.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Mumbi Ngaru, former MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, and also a former mayor of Thika Town. Danso Mungatana, Senator Tana River County, Samuel Pogisio, ICT Minister, Kibaki to Administration, and also Senate Majority Leader in the 12th Parliament. Our panelists this morning on State of the Nation, looking at the big headlines. Of course, big day for America, the US, as Donald Trump is inaugurated as the 47th President of the US. Other quick highlights is former President Uhuru Kenyatta making it back to the front pages. After the break, Monday Blitz coming up, a discussion on sports. What is the big discussion? Manchester United and Onana. Are Arsenal still in the title race? Plus, what happens to Chan now that it's been postponed? Fred Rocho and Shutterboy will be in studio for that. Do stand by. My name is Freddie Ndemuli. Good morning.